Hello, everyone, welcome back to the World Conflict Monitor. Please subscribe and like my videos. Today we're diving deep into the story of Belarus. Boiling point, Lukashenko's rule crumbles as Minsk rises. Let's unpack this from every angle: exterior look, interior dynamics, performance of the regime, its safety features, security apparatus, unique selling points for the regime, and for the audience seeking to understand, price what's being paid, and then conclude. First, let's set the exterior scene. The country of Belarus sits wedged between Russia and Europe, geopolitically caught in one of the most fraught zones on the map. The capital, Minsk, gleams with Soviet-era architecture, wide boulevards, the red-green flag fluttering above state buildings. You'll see images of the national flag, of parade squares, of security forces patrolling. On the surface, Belarus projects stability. The ruler, Alexander Lukashenko, has been in power since 1994. He has cultivated the image of the father of the nation, overseeing an economy that retains many Soviet features, being relatively stable compared to some neighbors, and maintaining social services. But beneath that polished facade, the cracks are growing. The exterior story is: a country that once seemed insulated is now under immense strain. It's facing rising protest, economic pressure, sanctions, an uneasy balancing act between Russia and the West, and a leadership whose monopoly on power is no longer guaranteed. The external visuals are strong. Agents in uniform at border posts, military drills with Russia. See Belarus, Russia joint exercises. That's the exterior. What you see if you fly into Minsk, walk the streets, sense the regime's presence. The grand buildings, the flags, the military presence, the carefully managed stability. Now let's delve into the interior, the deep, large paragraph as requested. On the interior front, what's happening inside Belarus is a tense combination of repression, fear, controlled stability, and underlying unrest. Lukashenko's governance model is firmly authoritarian. He eliminated presidential term limits, reshaped the constitution, consolidated power in the presidency and the security services. Opposition protesters in 2020, alarmed neighbors, and a restless population demanded change, only to be met with heavy crackdowns, mass arrests, violence, suppression of independent media, and exile of activists. Economically, Belarus remains heavily state-controlled, reliant on Russian energy subsidies, benefiting from some stability but lacking robust growth or full market reforms. Socially, many Belarusian citizens accept stability and safety, but younger generations and urban dwellers increasingly resent the lack of political freedom, limited economic opportunity, and the regime's close dependence on Moscow. Meanwhile, the regime itself is aware of its vulnerability. Internal security is bolstered, patriotic rhetoric is amplified, we are surrounded by enemies, and the border with NATO member states Poland, Lithuania, Latvia is emphasized. At the same time, the regime is trying to manage both its domestic legitimacy and its relationship with Russia, less than happy with being entirely dependent, seeking small gestures of independence to appease national pride and marginally improve ties with the West. The interior picture then is of a brittle authorial order, outwardly firm, inwardly nervous, as economic pressures mount, due to sanctions related to support for Russia's war in Ukraine and global energy/commodity shifts. The strain will show more. The regime's narrative emphasizes that it protects Belarus from chaos, from Western encroachment, from being a weak state. The reality is that the populace is paying a price: limited freedom, risk of repression, economic stagnation, and the possibility that when crisis hits, the state apparatus will be tested. The interior, therefore, is a cauldron: simmering resentment, tight control, reliance on external patron Russia, and an uncertain transition ahead. It's very much Minsk rises, in the sense that the capital and certain sectors show ambition, but Lukashenko's rule crumbles. because these internal pressures are eroding the foundation of his decades-long dominance. Turning now to performance, how well is the regime doing in terms of delivering on its promises of stability, growth, and national strength? On the positive side, Belarus has often been touted as one of the more stable former Soviet republics. Low crime, decent social safety nets, strong state employment, reasonable living standards relative to some neighbors. Lukashenko used that public service angle to claim his legitimacy, but performance metrics tell a more mixed story. Economic growth has been weak, foreign investment is limited by systemic political risk, sanctions hamper trade, dependency on Russia is heavy. The regime's performance suffers from global isolation, lack of innovation, and reign of younger Belarusians seeking freer lives abroad. Militarily/security wise, Belarus is militarily significant because of its positioning and its integration with Russian forces, but that also means it is a target and a pawn. The performance of the regime in terms of maintaining the status quo may still be intact, but the ability to build for the future looks weak. So in sum, performance has been good at maintenance, keeping the lid on things, but poor at transformation and resilience in a changing world. Moving on to safety features, here we examine how the regime ensures its own security, how the country's safety mechanisms work, and what that means for both the regime and ordinary citizens. The Belarusian state under Lukashenko heavily relies on the security services, internal police, the KGB in Belarus, surveilling dissidents, controlling media, monitoring protests, and weaving a culture of fear. Elections are tightly controlled. Independent observers are scarce, media controlled, opposition marginalized. Border security is tight, and Belarus cooperates with Russia in military exercises and sometimes hosts Russian military hardware and infrastructure, meaning that external safety is also about being a partner to Moscow. Domestic safety in terms of public order is relatively high. The regime uses its apparatus to suppress crime and dissent, but that safety is double-edged. It means security chiefly for the state, not necessarily for individuals seeking political freedom. It also means that in times of crisis, the regime may resort to repression. The safety features also carry external risk. Being seen as a staging ground for Russian operations in Ukraine exposes Belarus to sanctions, military danger, and escalation. The regime's safety strategy, thus, is to trade some sovereignty for Russian patronage, accept external risk in exchange for internal control. Next, unique selling points. From the regime's perspective, its selling points are stability in a turbulent region, historical continuity, relative calm, social services, a sense of national identity tied to Soviet nostalgia, and independence from chaotic liberal reforms. From an analytical/viewer perspective, the unique selling points of this story are how the last European strongman is now showing cracks, how Minsk is rising urban, modernizing while the old guard stumbles, the geography and strategic importance of Belarus as a bridge between Russia and Europe, the interplay of domestic repression, economic dependency, and geostrategic positioning, and the fact that this is both a story about internal politics and about global power politics, Russia, Ukraine war, NATO neighbors. So the selling point is that this narrative offers a rare front line of autocracy, regional conflict, state survival, and potential transition. Now consider the price, what costs are being paid for this situation. For the Belarusian people, limited political freedoms, risk of repression, economic stagnation, dependency on Russia, diminished international options. Some Belarusians have fled abroad, many live under fear or resigned acceptance. For the regime, increasing international isolation, sanctions, dependency on an outside patron Russia, vulnerability to external and internal shocks, economic crisis, protest movements, Russian demands. For the region, Belarus is more deeply tied into Russia's military security apparatus, which risks dragging to conflicts such as Ukraine. The price is high politically, economically, and morally. If the regime collapses or transitions, the cost could be instability, even violence. For the West and for NATO neighbors, Belarus serves as a strategic challenge, and thus the price includes dealing with migration issues, border security, hybrid warfare risk, so the price is mighty. Finally, conclusion. In conclusion, the story of Belarus under Lukashenko is at a critical juncture. The exterior suggests continuity and strength, the flags flying, the rallies, the state machinery humming. But the interior reveals shaky foundations, economic challenges, political resentment, a shaky legitimacy. The regime's performance in maintaining order has been adequate, but in adapting to change it is weak. The safety features ensure state survival for now, but at a cost and with external risk. The unique selling points of this narrative make Belarus a compelling case study of resilience, autocracy, strategic geography, and the looming possibility of change. Yet the price is high for the populace, for the regime, for the region. Minsk rises is a phrase full of promise, but the promise is tempered by the reality of an aging strongman and a shifting global order. Will Lukashenko's rule crumble? Possibly. Will Belarus change? Probably. The question is when, how, and at what cost. For viewers watching this video, what to take away? First, geopolitical attention matters. Second, authoritarian regimes may seem stable, but often hide deep fractures. Third, Belarus's story intersects with the war in Ukraine, the Russia-West divide, and the future of Eastern Europe. We'll continue monitoring this one because the next chapter may bring major shifts. That wraps our story. Thanks for watching. Don't forget to subscribe and like. Hit the bell so you don't miss our next breakdown, and share this video if you found it insightful. Stay tuned, stay informed, and I'll see you in the next one.